The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the distant roar of engines speeding away. A battered old car screeched to a halt on a deserted highway, headlights slicing through the misty darkness. The back door flung open, and a man's harsh voice snapped, "Out, you useless thing!" With a rough shove, a trembling dog landed hard on the cold asphalt, the sound echoing like a crack in the stillness. He whimpered softly, his paws scraping against the rough road as the car door slammed shut. The man's indifferent face flashed briefly under the flickering light before the car roared off into the distance, red taillights fading like dying embers. Dust swirled around the abandoned dog, his scarred coat catching the faint glow of the moon. His eyes, wide and glistening, held confusion more than anger, fear more than pain. The world suddenly felt larger, lonelier, and more dangerous. A sharp wind carried the scent of gasoline and dust, whipping against his fur as he struggled to stand. His ears twitched at every distant sound, yet no comfort came. In that moment, a bond shattered, leaving behind a creature broken, but still faintly holding on to the faint spark of survival. The cold night pressed heavily against the wounded animal as he limped toward the edge of the road. His body shook with exhaustion, every breath shallow and rough. Hunger gnawed at him, but fear weighed heavier, pulling his head low. The sound of distant traffic echoed like a cruel reminder of the life that had abandoned him. He paused, glancing back down the road where the car had vanished, as if still hoping it might return. His heart pounded in confusion, loyalty clashing with betrayal. The moon cast silver light across the fields, but it only deepened the shadows around him. His legs faltered, and he sank onto the ground, chest heaving, eyes glistening with silent despair. The world no longer felt safe, and trust, once given so freely, now felt dangerous. His soft whine faded into the darkness, unheard, unanswered. Shadows stretched long across the cracked pavement as he curled against a patch of dry weeds. His ears pricked at every distant noise, but no comfort followed. Hunger clawed deeper, twisting in his empty belly. He rested his head on the cold ground, eyes fixed on the faint horizon glow. His heart ached, replaying the memory of the man's rough shove, the cruel tone, the closing door. A soft growl escaped him, more from sorrow than rage. The night deepened, each second colder, the silence pressing tighter. His breath slowed as exhaustion overcame fear, but his body remained tense, ready to flee at the slightest threat. For the first time, loneliness felt heavier than pain, echoing through every beat of his trembling heart. The highway stretched endlessly, empty yet filled with menace. The dog stirred, rising unsteadily, drawn forward by instinct more than hope. His paws scraped the ground as he walked, each step unsteady, echoing faintly in the cold stillness. The wind shifted, carrying scents of gasoline, dust, and faraway smoke. His nose twitched, seeking food, safety, anything. But each direction only revealed darker emptiness. He paused, staring into the distance, ears flicking to the rustle of dry weeds. The night held secrets, none kind. He sighed, weary but moving, because standing still felt like surrender. The silence mocked his effort, but something deep inside refused to let him collapse again. As dawn neared, faint light brushed the horizon, painting the sky with dull gray. The dog paused, chest rising heavily, eyes fixed on the changing colors above. His body sagged with exhaustion, but his gaze clung stubbornly to the horizon. The first warmth of morning promised little, yet it pushed him forward. A distant crow cawed, startling him, but he did not flee. His paws ached, raw from the road, but still they carried him onward. Behind him lay betrayal, before him uncertainty, but somewhere beyond, perhaps a sliver of safety waited. His eyes, tired yet steady, reflected not surrender, but the faint spark of survival refusing to die. The pale morning sun rose slowly, brushing soft light over the empty road. The dog lifted his head, blinking against the brightness, body aching from the cold night. Hunger burned deeper, but so did the ache of betrayal that lingered in his chest. His paws carried him off the road toward a patch of grass, where dew sparkled faintly like shards of glass. He sniffed the ground, desperate for scraps, but found nothing but dirt. A crow perched on a fence post nearby, tilting its head as it watched him with quiet curiosity. He paused, locking eyes with the bird, sensing judgment in its stare. He let out a quiet whine as if confessing his pain, but the crow cawed sharply and took flight, wings flapping into the distance. His ears flattened, and he lowered his head, ashamed even in solitude. For the first time, he truly felt how invisible his suffering was to the world around him. The morning stretched longer, each moment heavier with silence. The dog moved slowly, his legs stiff, his tail low, searching for anything to ease his hunger. A faded farmhouse appeared in the distance, its roof broken and walls weathered. He crept closer, ears flicking at every creak of wood, the scent of old hay drifting through the air. His stomach growled loudly, echoing his desperation. He sniffed near a rusted barrel, finding nothing but stale water dripping onto cracked earth. His eyes darted nervously, half hoping, half fearing a human presence. The place carried the ghost of life once lived, but no warmth remained. He let out a sigh, curling near the wooden post, body slumping with exhaustion. Hope felt like a cruel trick, just beyond reach. Inside the hollow silence of the farmhouse yard, the dog wandered slowly, ears twitching at each faint sound. The wind rattled loose boards, the echoes startling him with every shift. He nosed through weeds, sniffing desperately, but only dust and scraps of dried leaves met him. His tail tucked closer as frustration built, and he pawed weakly at the ground, uncovering nothing useful. The world seemed cruel, offering only reminders of emptiness. He paused at the doorway, staring into the shadowed interior, eyes wide with caution. The smell of rot lingered faintly, warning him away. Yet hunger pushed him to stay, torn between fear and need. He stepped back, chest rising with a long, broken sigh, as if whispering to himself, "Why does no one care?" The hours passed with little relief. The dog lay in the patchy grass, sun warming his battered body, yet no comfort reached his heart. His eyes half closed, but each sound snapped him awake, always ready for danger. A butterfly drifted lazily past, wings glowing gold in the sunlight. His gaze followed it, for a fleeting moment, distracted from pain. He lifted his head, ears twitching, as if wondering how such fragile beauty could exist in a world so harsh. For a second, he forgot the hunger gnawing his ribs and simply watched. But the butterfly vanished, and the silence returned heavier than before. His head sank back down, chest rising and falling in slow, weary breaths. Hope felt fragile, like that butterfly's wings, always just out of reach. Evening shadows began to stretch across the field, painting the land in shades of orange and gray. The dog rose again, shaking weakly, his body stiff from the long day of wandering. His eyes lingered on the horizon, where the sun melted into crimson clouds. The sight pulled at something deep within him, a memory of comfort once known, now gone. His paws pressed into the soft earth as he walked forward, each step heavy but determined. A distant howl drifted through the air, carried by the wind, making his ears perk and his body stiffen. He was not alone, yet he could not tell if that was hope or danger. He paused, head lifted, eyes reflecting the fading light, waiting, listening. The world seemed to hold its breath. The night returned colder than before, wrapping the fields in silence. The dog crept along the roadside, nose lowered, searching desperately for scraps. His ribs ached from emptiness, each step heavy with fatigue. In the distance, a faint glow of houses shimmered, and for a moment, his heart quickened with hope. He moved closer, ears pricked, tail lowered in cautious hesitation. But as he approached, the sound of voices cut through the air, sharp and unfriendly. A man stepped out from one of the porches, his hand gripping a stick, shouting, "Get out, filthy mutt!" The dog froze, his body trembling, eyes wide with both fear and longing. The man advanced, swinging the stick roughly against the ground. With a frightened whimper, the dog bolted, heart pounding, the the faint hope of warmth shattering into shards of cruelty once more. The dog raced through the dark fields, the sound of the man's shouts echoing behind him. His paws tore at the ground, sending clumps of dirt flying. He stopped only when his lungs burned, collapsing near a ditch. The world spun around him, his chest heaving, breath forming mist in the cold air. He glanced back, ears twitching. But the man was gone, leaving only silence. Slowly, he dragged himself deeper into the ditch, curling tightly for protection. The earth felt damp and bitter, clinging to his fur, but it was safer than the open. His eyes fluttered shut, but the echo of cruelty lingered in his mind. His body trembled, not just from cold, but from the memory of rejection. In that hollow ditch, the weight of loneliness pressed heavier than ever before. By morning, the world felt raw, drenched in pale gray light. The dog rose slowly from the ditch, his fur stiff with dirt, his body aching. He stumbled forward, guided by instinct, his paws dragging across wet ground. A sound made him freeze, barking in the distance. He raised his head, ears flicking, and spotted another dog, smaller and thinner, sniffing near a pile of trash. The sight stirred something deep within him, a flicker of recognition, a reminder that he was not the only one. He stepped closer, careful and slow, but the smaller dog bolted, vanishing into the shadows. His tail lowered, disappointment weighing heavy, but the moment left him shaken. For the first time he realized others suffered the same fate, and the world felt crueler knowing he was not alone in despair. Hunger gnawed stronger as the day dragged on. The dog wandered into the edge of town, where people bustled along streets. He stood at a distance, tail low, watching as children laughed and played. The sight pierced his heart, a memory flickering of gentler times. He crept closer, eyes pleading, but the reaction was not kindness. One boy picked up a stone and threw it, shouting, "Go away!" The rock skidded past his paws, making him yelp and retreat. His ears folded back, body shivering, the sting not only from fear but from the rejection. He glanced once more at the children, their laughter sharp and cruel in his ears. His head lowered, and he turned away, the small chance of kindness dissolving beneath a wave of cruelty and misunderstanding. Evening fell once more, the air heavy with shadows. The dog found shelter beneath a rusted bridge, the sound of dripping water echoing around him. His body curled tightly, paws tucked under, ribs rising and falling in weary rhythm. Above him, cars roared past, the vibrations shaking the ground. He closed his eyes, but sleep refused to come, his mind replaying the day's pain. Each moment of cruelty pressed heavier, and yet within his chest, a small spark still glimmered. He licked his paw gently, trying to soothe the ache, his eyes reflecting the faint glow of headlights passing above. Though the world felt merciless, his heart whispered that tomorrow might bring something different. It was fragile, almost invisible, but still enough to keep him alive. Morning broke with golden light stretching across the town's edge. The dog limped into a quiet street, ribs aching, fur clinging in patches of dried mud. His ears twitched as the sound of footsteps approached. A woman carrying a grocery bag slowed her pace, her eyes locking onto his frail figure. She whispered softly, "Oh, you poor thing." The dog froze, muscles tense, unsure whether kindness or cruelty waited. The woman crouched slightly, her hand extended, fingers trembling with both fear and sympathy. His heart pounded, torn between the instinct to run and the longing for safety. Her voice carried warmth, fragile but sincere. For the first time, the dog felt something different in human eyes, not anger, not dismissal, but compassion that made him hesitate. The woman set her bag gently on the ground, pulling out a piece of bread wrapped in paper. She tore a small piece and placed it in front of her, whispering, "It's all right, boy. I won't hurt you." The dog stepped back, tail tucked, eyes darting nervously between her hand and the food. His stomach growled loudly, betraying his hunger. The woman's eyes softened, a tear glistening as she watched him shake with fear. Slowly, she lowered her gaze, making herself small, showing patience. The dog sniffed the air, the smell of bread stirring his courage, yet the memory of cruelty chained his legs. He whimpered, caught between survival and mistrust. The silence stretched, broken only by her calm voice repeating softly, "You're safe here." The dog inched forward, nose twitching, paws trembling on the cracked pavement. His eyes never left the woman's face, searching for any sign of danger. She stayed perfectly still, hands steady, breath slow. The smell of bread pulled him closer, each step hesitant, ears flicking nervously. When his nose brushed the edge of the food, his body froze, waiting for the harsh strike he had learned to expect. But none came. Instead, the woman whispered, "Good boy," her voice tender and trembling. The dog's jaw worked slowly as he picked up the crumb, chewing cautiously, eyes still wide with disbelief. For the first time, the simple act of eating did not come with fear of punishment. Something fragile cracked open inside him, a glimpse of trust, faint but real. The woman slowly lifted her bag, standing carefully, never taking her eyes off the trembling dog. She whispered, "Come with me. I'll help you." Her tone was gentle, carrying promise instead of command. The dog tilted his head, ears twitching, torn between instinct and longing. She walked a few steps, glancing back to see if he would follow. He hesitated, paws digging into the dirt, tail low but no longer pressed tightly against him. Hunger urged him forward, hope whispering louder than fear. Slowly, he limped after her, his body stiff but his gaze locked on her kind presence. For the first time, he chose to follow a human, not because he was forced, but because something inside told him it was worth the risk. The road ahead felt uncertain but no longer empty. The woman led the way, her steps steady, her presence calm. The dog followed at a distance, eyes fixed on her, each movement heavy with hesitation, yet guided by fragile hope. The town's noise faded as they reached a quieter path lined with trees. Leaves rustled in the soft breeze, a gentler sound than the harsh voices he had known. His heart beat fast, every instinct screaming to be careful, yet the sight of her glancing back with a reassuring smile soothed him. For the first time in countless nights, his chest eased, not in safety yet, but in the promise of it. Something new had begun, the first step in learning trust again. The quiet path led to the edge of town, where broken fences lined an abandoned lot. The woman walked carefully, the dog trailing behind. Suddenly, the sound of a familiar voice shattered the stillness. From the shadows, the cruel man appeared, the same one who had abandoned the dog, his face twisted with disdain. "So you survived," he spat, gripping a broken stick. The dog froze, trembling, memories flooding back like open wounds. The woman stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with anger. "Leave him alone," she shouted, shielding the dog with her body. The man sneered, taking a step closer, his eyes cold and unfeeling. The dog's heart pounded, torn between fear and the urge to protect. The moment tightened, danger thick in the air. The woman stood her ground, voice firm, "You don't deserve him." The man laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "He's nothing but trash." His words cut through the air like knives. The dog's ears twitched, body trembling as he pressed closer to the woman. His eyes darted between the two humans, confusion and dread in every glance. The man raised his stick, stepping forward with menace. The dog flinched, but this time something deep inside shifted. He felt the warmth of the woman's presence beside him, steady and strong. For the first time, fear and loyalty collided, igniting a spark of courage. His paws shifted forward, claws scraping the ground as he steadied himself, ready to face the man who had once owned his pain. The man swung the stick downward with fury, but before it could land, the dog leapt forward with a sudden burst of strength. His growl tore through the silence, raw and defiant. His teeth snapped just inches from the man's hand, forcing him to stumble back. The woman gasped, both fear and pride mingling in her eyes. The man cursed, rage flashing across his face as he raised the stick again, but his steps faltered. The dog stood firm, body tense, chest heaving, a barrier of loyalty now replacing fear. His eyes burned with a message clear and unyielding: no more. The man's confidence wavered for the first time, his cruelty confronted by the very creature he once broke. The confrontation hung heavy, the air electric with tension. The man hesitated, sweat glistening, as the dog growled again, standing guard before the woman. She reached down, her hand brushing the dog's back, whispering, "Good boy. You're brave." The words carried power, steadying the dog's trembling heart. The man snarled, but his steps faltered as he realized his power no longer held. The woman's eyes locked onto his with defiance, her stance unwavering. "You'll never hurt him again," she declared. The man cursed, lowering his stick slowly, his cruel confidence broken by a loyalty stronger than fear. The moment was raw, filled with victory, not of violence, but of defiance and love. Defeated, the man spat on the ground and turned away, muttering curses as he disappeared into the shadows. The silence that followed felt heavy, yet strangely freeing. The dog stood still, chest rising and falling in uneven breaths, his eyes fixed on the woman beside him. She knelt, her hands reaching carefully, touching his scarred face with gentle reassurance. "You're safe now," she whispered, her voice trembling with relief. His eyes softened, the growl fading into quiet whimpers, his body leaning into her touch. For the first time, trust began to feel possible, not as a dream, but as a fragile truth. Together they stood against cruelty, and together they had won. The following morning felt different. The cruel voice was gone, replaced by the warmth of birdsong and the steady breath of safety. The woman walked beside the dog on a quiet path, the town far behind them now. Her pace was slow, careful not to push him, each glance filled with reassurance. The dog limped close, ribs still aching, but his steps no longer dragged with despair. His ears flicked as he listened to her soft voice, every word like a promise. "You'll be all right," she murmured, though her voice trembled with emotion. For the first time, he did not flinch at the sound of words. Instead, his head tilted slightly, eyes reflecting cautious curiosity. The long road to healing had begun, step by careful step. The woman guided him to her modest home, its wooden porch bathed in soft sunlight. She opened the door slowly, inviting him inside with patience. The dog hesitated at the threshold, nose twitching, paws frozen. His eyes darted nervously, memories of closed spaces bringing fear. She knelt, hand resting against the floor, whispering, "This is your home now." Her tone was steady, filled with hope. The dog lowered his head, inching forward with trembling legs. The scent of warmth, food, and safety reached him, and for the first time in years, the threshold did not feel like a trap. His paws crossed into the house, slow but deliberate. Behind him, the outside world remained, but inside, something new began. Inside, the house carried the smell of fresh bread and clean air. The dog moved cautiously, his paws pressing against the wooden floorboards. Each creak made his ears flick, but no threat followed. The woman placed a bowl of water and food on the ground, stepping back to give him space. His eyes widened, the scent pulling him closer. He lowered his head, sniffing nervously, before lapping at the water with quick gulps. The woman watched with quiet relief, her eyes glistening. He paused often, lifting his gaze to her, expecting the harsh interruption of cruelty. But none came. Instead, he ate in peace, his body slowly releasing its tension. For the first time, nourishment felt like kindness, not survival. Later, the woman placed a blanket near the corner of the room, patting it softly. "This is yours," she said gently. The dog tilted his head, confused by the offering. He approached slowly, sniffing the fabric, its warmth inviting. His body lowered hesitantly, curling onto the soft surface. A sigh escaped him, deep and weary, as though his soul had waited years for this moment. The woman sat nearby, not too close, respecting the fragile bond. Her eyes softened, watching him drift into uneasy rest. The scars on his body told a story of survival, but in that moment, the first layer of healing began. He dreamed not of fear but of quiet safety, fragile yet real. As the evening settled, a lamp cast a golden glow across the room. The woman sat in a chair, reading softly aloud, her voice calm and steady. The dog lifted his head, ears flicking, eyes watching her. He did not understand the words, but he felt their rhythm, the way they carried peace instead of fear. His tail gave a faint, uncertain wag, the first since betrayal. The woman noticed and smiled, tears forming as she whispered, "You're safe here." The dog lowered his head again, resting on his paws, but his eyes no longer carried only caution. In their place grew the faint beginnings of trust, fragile as dawn light, yet enough to carry them into tomorrow. The days grew brighter, each one softer than the last. The dog followed the woman into her garden, sunlight warming his scarred coat. His tail swayed gently, uncertain but real. Birds sang in the trees above, filling the morning air with peace. The woman knelt to plant flowers, glancing at him with a smile that carried quiet pride. He lowered his head near her hand, brushing against her gently, no longer afraid of touch. Her voice whispered, "You're safe, my brave boy." The words sank deeper than wounds, healing something invisible. One afternoon, children passed by the fence, their laughter echoing. The dog froze at first, memories of stones and cruelty flashing in his mind. But the woman placed her hand on his back, steady and firm. He breathed deeply, eyes fixed on her calm presence, and then looked back toward the children. They waved, smiling, not with malice but innocence. His tail flicked once, then twice, the first sign of acceptance. The woman's eyes filled with tears, watching him take another step away from fear. That evening, the woman sat on the porch, the sky glowing with sunset hues. The dog lay at her feet, head resting on her lap. Her fingers brushed through his rough fur, no longer recoiled from scars, but cherishing them as proof of survival. His eyes closed slowly, chest rising in steady rhythm, comfort finally stronger than fear. For the first time he slept in peace beside a human, not in a ditch or beneath a bridge, but in the safety of love. Days turned into weeks, and the bond deepened. The dog now ran freely through the fields, his scarred body no longer bound by fear. The woman watched from the distance, laughter soft in her throat, her heart lightened. He chased butterflies, ears flapping, paws striking the earth with joy he had once forgotten. Though scars marked his past, his spirit soared above them. The world, once cruel, now gave him space to breathe, love, and live. On the final night, the sky burned with twilight colors. The woman stood on a hill, the dog beside her, their silhouettes framed against fading light. He pressed close, eyes fixed on the horizon, no longer broken, but whole again. She whispered, "We made it." His tail wagged gently, and for the first time, he leaned fully into her side. Together they stood, bathed in the quiet beauty of survival and love. The story of pain was not erased, but it had been transformed into hope.